Chuck Woolery's joined the broadcast. Chuck, thank you for calling in and
oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I was a little early and a little late today.
Hey, no sweat. It's not a problem. I
was early this morning and late tonight.
Hey, no problem, folks. Chuck Woolery here. He's, of course, spokesman for Generation America, outspoken advocate of the Constitution. SaveUsChuckWoolery.com. Is that right, Chuck? Is that SaveUsChuckWoolery.com?
Yes, you can go to SaveUsChuckWoolery.com, and you'll find all kinds of things I have to say about stuff.
No, that's fine. That's fantastic. I went, perused it, folks. Definitely go there today. Check it out. So, Chuck, what do you make of this latest talk with Dianne Feinstein and the serial hypocrisy coming out of Congress? Here's Dianne Feinstein, who, of course, has a concealed carry permit. At one time, if not still today, open or concealed carries. Why do you think there's such a move now to try and take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans?
Well, look, what happened at Sandy Hook is really tragic. What happened in Colorado is these things are so tragic and so heartrending. It's almost difficult to have a conversation about the instrument that is used by the perpetrator in any kind of clarity. It's just difficult. Emotionally, we all have children. We know what it feels like. So you're into a situation where politicians can take advantage of that situation and leverage their ideas on you, whether they're right or wrong. In this case, they're absolutely wrong. I think that Dianne Feinstein, look, she comes from San Francisco. Do I need to really say more?
No.
That is, they don't call it the left coast for nothing. It's just,
no, you're
and on top
right.
of that, this is a continuing war of progressives on our Constitution that's been going on for over 100 years. It's just another aberration. They constantly pick away at every amendment, at every constitutional right, from freedom of speech to freedom to bear arms, to just go on and on down the line. And they constantly try to amend it or go around it. There is a very good if it were not for the Second Amendment, the rest of the Constitution really wouldn't mean anything. So, we have to defend ourselves against tyranny. We also have to defend ourselves against criminals. And we have the right to do that because the Constitution says we do. It says we do. If you want to change the Constitution, then fine, bring an amendment up, try to amend it, and see how that goes. I don't think it'll go very well, so they try to work their way around it somehow, working on the emotions and what they call their particular leftist rationale. I don't agree with it. It's really not my decision. It's my personal opinion. But, what are you going to do? You have to fight them tooth and nail all the time. George Washington said it best. Government is not reason. It's not equitable. It's force. It's like fire. It's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. You just have to fight with government all the time in order to keep it straight. And it's difficult. It's thank God for the NRA. Thank God for people like that. Thank God for gun owners. Thank God that we can at least stand on our own 2 feet. But we are constantly being pursued by this leftist, progressive, social progressive attitude that we just have to fight it tooth and nail all the time. Look, the Founding Fathers thought there was going to be a revolution every 20 years. So we just have a revolution of words all the time and ideas, and we have to beat them back.
Why do you Oh, go ahead, Denny. Go ahead.
What do you think of your leftist brethren in Hollywood? I shouldn't say your leftist brethren, but at least your brethren in Hollywood that made that freaking spot about it's time. Yeah, I almost vomited when I saw that.
The spirit of Goebbels still lives, doesn't it?
Boy, isn't that the truth?
It really is. It's they constantly call the right Nazis and everything else when in fact, they take their lead from people like Goebbels and state-run media and all that kind of thing. It's just another salute to the left from Hollywood. Look, they get their breaks from tax breaks to every other kind of break. They're part of the propaganda machine. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just some kind of conspiracy guy that lives under a rock someplace and everybody's coming to get me. But quite frankly, they are a very useful tool to the left. And so they admire them, they love them, they placate them, they cater to them, they revere them, as long as they do what they're told. And most of them agree anyway. So, my rule in life when I was in Hollywood is whatever Hollywood thought, I did exactly the opposite, and I was always right. Didn't necessarily work out to my favor, but I was always right.
Yeah. Why do you think the GOP capitulated so much?
Because the GOP is the GOP. Look, the thing of it is, when I describe myself to people, I say, look, I'm a conservative libertarian. I am not a Republican.
Yes. Very good.
And it's that simple. I mean, it's too bad that we only have two parties. I think it would be probably confusing with three. I'm ready to start the Whig Party back up again. I mean, it's just, the Republicans are just ridiculous. I mean, they're politicians just like the Democrats are. There's no difference in them. They just talk a different game. They don't really mean it. It just gives them something else to say. And I'm not indicting everybody in the Republican. By the way, I am indicting everybody, maybe with the exception of Joe Manchin and the Democratic Party. I don't know how far he goes, but at least he seems to be semi-reasonable from West Virginia, senator from West Virginia who's a Democrat. And honestly, God, that's the only person I can look to in the Democratic Party and say, well, he seems to have some sense. Republicans, they disguise where they are. I just, I'm it's a pox on both their houses. That's why I have restartcongress.org. We need to roll these guys over like wheels on a truck. I mean, they should not be able to stay longer than 2 or 4 years, 6 or 12 years. They should be out of there. I wish the 17th Amendment had never passed.
Amen to that, Chuck.
Anyway.
Well, and it's interesting too because
I sound awfully mad. No, I'm really not angry. I'm just disgusted.
No, that's good. And you should be. You should very well be. It's just like all Americans should be outraged right now. During the election of 2008, when we had the turnover from the Democrats to the Republicans taking over the House, you still only had a 17% turnover. And that was right after the crash of Lehman Brothers. You know what I mean? So
it's not, you know what? It's not. I had a thing called restartcongress.org, which actually came out of the Cato Institute in Washington. We had a big meeting about it and talked about it, and that's when we started it. But in reality, it is absolutely a dead horse. People don't pay enough attention. The thing that we have to understand is, and I do this with the sites that I have, and I'll get like 4 million hits on a certain piece of information I put out, like on budget cuts or on Second Amendment on my site, Save Us Chuck Woolery. I'll get all these hits on that, and I think to myself, most of them, I'm just preaching to the choir. I'm talking to people who do pay attention, who do listen, but by and large, most people have no clue what's going on, and they don't really want to until the hammer drops. Then it's too late. And you and I, all of us, are looking at what's the possibility of what could happen. We see the curve up ahead. We see the cliff up ahead, and we're saying, stop the bus. Don't drive us off that cliff. And everybody else is having a drink and smoking and joking, and they don't care.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Now,
it's sad, but it's true.
One of your big fights right now has to do with the lobby for seniors. And now you're the spokesperson for Generation America. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. There's another very interesting. There's some people. I think there are many people on the right. When I say the right, the real right, the conservative right, who don't understand what AARP really does with them, for them, and not on their behalf. And so I can't blame it. Let me just clarify this real, because I'm going to use the word ignorant, and I don't mean it in a pejorative way. Sure. Ignorant literally means without information. Stupid means to have the information and act contrary to it anyway. So there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. It's just you just don't have the information. I'm ignorant about a lot of things. But a lot of times these people are ignorant as to what the AARP is doing. And if you go to generationamerica.com, generationamerica.org. Yeah, I always say com instead of org for some reason. It's hard for me to do. It sounds so governmental, so I don't like to use the word org. But anyway, .org. If you go to that site, you'll see 70 pages of emails between AARP and the White House, basically constructing how they could pass Obamacare. And I will say this absolutely as a true statement, and these emails will back it up. If it were not for AARP, we would not be having to deal with Obamacare and this hideous bill that's coming down on all of us with taxes that are just beyond belief and health care that will be putrid. And it's too bad, but you can blame them for it. So Generation America is basically the alternative to that. We're a conservative organization. We're not the only one, but we're one of them. We're probably the only one that's not an insurance company. But I didn't really come on to advocate for them. It's just that AARP is they are what they are. They are a leftist, progressive organization who are in bed with the White House, and this White House for sure. They are very, very political. They lobby with billions and billions of dollars, not to the benefit of seniors, but to the benefit of their own pocketbook. Because quite frankly, Medigap is what I'm talking about. This little Medigap, this insurance between Social Security and Medicare and all that kind of stuff. So there's an insurance company or insurance policy that they offer in order to fill that gap. Well, Generation America could make a lot of money off that. But the difference is we don't advocate for it because we just think it's wrong. So,
Chuck,
we can buy it for you, but we just think it's wrong to have to do that.
You're doing a lot of spots, Chuck, which is, very admirable. We listened to some of those before we went on tonight. And I wanted to know, are you aware of the facts and that the disingenuous argument that's being proffered by the mainstream media that gun violence and violence in general is up in the United States, when in fact it's down, according to the FBI's own UCR report, the Uniform Crime Report says it's down for the 5th straight year. It's been trending down for 20 years, Chuck. We were at a full year low in 2010.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the problem is in communication, and this is what I do is with radio and television and movies. The problem is perception. It's very seldom the truth. And when you have a horrendous thing that happened at this school in Connecticut, it is the perception that it's happening everywhere. It's a perception that it's overwhelming by children being killed. So that's what they prey on. Then they can put out any kind of misinformation they want to, and people go, yeah, that's right. Because, again, people do not pay attention. They listen to what they're told. Mainstream media is nothing. It's become an arm of the government. It seems like in so many ways you just don't get. That's why I said Goebbels lives, because Goebbels is alive at ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC. I mean, where else are people going to get their information? Newspapers? They're worse than the media. So it's just... I'm not surprised that people don't know. I'm not surprised that they're fed bad information. I'm not surprised that we are being led by a minority of progressives in this country who are smart enough to be able to pull this off through the media. I mean, they're very smart about that. It was done in Germany to great effect by a minority. It can be done here, and that's what they're planning on. That's what they count on, is that people don't pay attention, and they can feed them any kind of information, misinformation that they want to, and they will believe it and support them.
Yeah.
That's just one part of it, that they're not giving the real stats out. But the other thing that they're missing, Chuck, and you might want to throw into some of your new spots, is the fact that there were supposed to be 3 of the shootings that they would have been dealing with when you look at the fact that there was an assault that was taking place at the Clackamas Mall in Oregon. Have you heard about that one? Or the one?
No, I didn't even know about that one.
Where 2 registered responsible gun owners stood up in the middle of the theater and stopped the car.
Well, they're not going to report that.
They came through Sandy Hook.
They will not report anybody who defends themselves. I mean, that's not what they're interested in. It's not their narrative. That would kill their narrative. They don't want us to know that.
Well, I called my congressman and my senator, and I was floored to number one, they didn't know about the FBI UCR statistics, and neither one of them, not the congressman nor the senator, knew about the Clackamas Mall shooting, nor did they know about the San Diego shooting, or the San Antonio shooting.
Does this really surprise you? They don't even know what's in the bills they're passing.
They don't even read the bill.
They don't know about anything. They turn to someone who's on their left, who's a staffer, and say, read this for me and tell me what's in it. And they'll say, oh, it's fine, sign it. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Yeah. No, you're right about that.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
No, you're right about that. Oh, go ahead.
That Congress is probably the least informed, except for re-election, of anybody on Earth.
Yeah,
they
no,
don't know anything.
But what's interesting about this, and of course you know that this narrative is being put out, it's just like you say, and Goebbels is such a great way to describe what's going on. But there's so many things in play right now, and part of the narrative was fiscal cliff. What people don't realize is that this fiscal cliff was going to happen regardless of if they passed some sort of compromise or not. And I often wonder...
They created the fiscal cliff. It's typical
Right.
Congress. They create a disaster, and then they come to what they call the rescue. They don't rescue anything.
There's nothing, right? So basically, here we go. We're going over the edge because, we're just spending out of control. So my question to you
This
is...
is not a tax problem. It's a spending problem. And Obama was very successful as convincing the American people that it was a tax problem. And look, it may be in the middle of his administration that it finally hits home that people go, oh, really? This isn't helping. I mean, maybe if they pay even close attention at all.
Right.
My problem is, I used to be a very happy fellow till I got really involved in this stuff. Now I'm not so happy.
Oh, yeah, me too. Isn't it horrible? Activism can be very depressing sometimes.
Oh, my wife looked at me. She said, would you please just let it go?
Mine does the same thing too, Chuck. So don't feel you're not alone there. Now, question. Now, we of course we have this fiscal crisis that's going on, and I truly believe in the next year. And I'm putting my speculative glasses on that we're going to start to see some draconian cuts in social services and everything like that. So when
I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why I disagree with you. And,
Go ahead.
And I don't think we're going to see draconian cuts in anything other than things that don't matter. When they start cutting, number one, they never deal with anything below the baseline ever. And that's the problem. Therein lies the problem. They only deal with growth. They only deal with what's the future is going to bring in cutting. They never deal with the real cuts. And so it'll come down to when, 40 years or 30 years or 20 or 15, whatever the number is, that we run out of money for Social Security. I mean, it's nothing but a Ponzi scheme anyway. So when they run out of money for it, everybody will start to scream and go, where's my check? And then they'll do something about it. But that's, look, they waited till the last minute to take care of what they call the fiscal cliff. They're going to wait till the last minute to take care of anything else. So I doubt very seriously that anything will happen. My resolution was for this new year, whatever comes out of Washington, any information comes out of Washington, expect the opposite.
Well, here's one last.
That's pretty depressing, but I think it's true.
It is. It's true. But do you think that this gun grab, that they, it's like Rahm Emanuel says, never let a crisis go to waste. With the tragedy at Sandy Hook, they take advantage of this to go and do a gun grab because they know that the gig is up. I mean, these politicians, these globalists have gone and looted and plundered the United States like never before, and they know that there's just a certain window of time that they have before people become aware of this. So do you think that maybe this is the gun grab coincides with this? Like it's, all part of a grand plan. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that is Washington politicians, number one, are in it for themselves, primarily. Right. And again, I don't want to indict everyone, but by and large, Washington politicians are in it for themselves. That's number one. Number two, they're like crocodiles. They're predators. The minute they see an opening, they grab and bite and swallow. And that's exactly what they'll do to the American people. They will do anything to preserve them, to preserve their own jobs and their own income and their own power, and they care less about the American people. We see that every day. But again, I must tell you that I believe historically this has been going on for probably since the beginning of the country and since the beginning of time in one way or another. But God, when you go back to Woodrow Wilson and FDR and people like that, there was only, Calvin Coolidge was only the one kind of stuck in the middle there who did the right thing. And do you know anything about Calvin Coolidge? Nobody knows anything about Calvin Coolidge other than the dam. That's about it.
That's right.
I mean, they don't realize that we were going to have this Great Depression in the 1920s, and he cut taxes in half, and he cut spending in half. And then we got the Roaring '20s out of it. People don't, there's so much about Austrian economics versus Keynesian economics, all of this kind of stuff that you and I probably know about, that people don't even have a clue about. I'll tell you one of the things that really bothers me more than anything else is here was Milton Friedman, who was a brilliant economist. And boy, that is like an oxymoron. I mean, there are very few brilliant economists. Most of them, don't know anything. He really was a very bright, smart guy, Austrian economics. He affected no one. I mean, just no one. Maybe a little bit on Reagan, but that's it. For this guy who was on Donahue, who was basically left to Mao, was on Donahue all the time, could explain everything in very simplistic and congenial terms about how international economics and how national economics worked, and he was smart, he was articulate, he got his point across, and yet no one listened. No, because it just didn't matter to them. So it's a little disconcerting realizing that it's like I always compare it to the intersection where they have four-way stop signs. Once there's enough accidents and enough people are killed, maimed, or whatever, the town finally says, let's put up a stoplight. And it just seems like people have to be run over and mauled before you ever get to putting up the stoplight. And I don't know whether it'll be too late. Look, it's not going to affect me. It will affect my children. And that's one of the reasons I'm involved in this is because, I've lived in a pretty good time through the 50s, 60s, well, not the 60s, 70s, well, not most of the 70s either, 80s, and part of the 90s. I mean, we've had a pretty good life. And that is now kind of winding down and coming to the end. I don't see the opportunity for my children and your children, on so many levels politically. It's just, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that Coolidge was elected because of Woodrow Wilson. Once the progressives came in and really, really cranked it up, that people ran like scalded dogs from them. So eventually we'll learn that the Hillary Clintons and the progressives and the Obamas and all those people, once they really show what they are instead of what we think they are, people hopefully will run from them. But then you've got Republican progressives to deal with, too.
Sure. To your point about the stop sign that you just mentioned, have you taken note in any of your spots that you do about the fact that after we had after Colorado and after Oregon, and we had the shootings before, have you noted that there was no political will on the Hill before the elections? I mean, we had a lot of shootings before then, Chuck, and nobody wanted to sack up and get up there and say, hey, we're going to take guns away from you. Only until after they had their cushy job after the election did they try to get this up to the American people.
They're politicians. They could care less about us. They only care about themselves. I mean, that's who they are. This is why we should be, electing new state senators every 6 years and new congressmen every 2 years. I would like it if these people had no idea where the bathroom was. That they spent so little time in Washington, they had no idea where any facility was that would relieve them so that they would get out as quickly as they can and turn it over to let other people have a shot at it. That's the way it's supposed to be.
How about our good friend Piers Morgan? Have you got any words to offer Piers Morgan?
Yeah, Piers Morgan wanted me to come on his show, and I said no, because I have,
So you offered. You got offered the opportunity. You got offered the opportunity to go and talk to Piers Morgan, did you?
I was offered the opportunity twice.
Oh my! That would have been good. Is that with or without?
Well, actually, it is no good, and I'll tell you why it's no good. Because you get with these guys, and I've hosted shows. I know how you can control the conversation and everything else. And they just cover you up with words. They're like Roland Martin. You know Roland Martin? You ever watch Roland Martin, the guy on MSNBC or CNBC?
Yeah. CNN. Yeah.
I think he's on CNBC or on CNN. Sorry, but the point is, they just talk incessantly so that you can't get a word in. They talk over you. They ridicule and demean you, so that they're not interested in debate. They're only interested in their point of view. So you get no chance to debate. I mean, Piers Morgan is notorious for that. They can bury you on their own show.
But I could see a Woolery Morgan steel cage match. I think that would be.
Yeah. Well, I'm an older man, but I still think I could take him down.
Come on. Show the good old American spirit, Chuck. That's what I'm saying. And I could definitely see some.
The other thing that you have to deal with is reason, and if you can't reason with someone, and they're not able to reason with you on any level, it's very difficult to have a conversation of any consequence with them.
Absolutely right. Now, and it's a struggle, and I've seen people like Ted Nugent and Jesse Ventura go on Piers Morgan and just get absolutely slayed. Now, they've held their own, but you're definitely at a disadvantage when you go
it's not only a disadvantage. I always feel like if I'm going to go someplace, I'll go somewhere where I can accomplish something. It's right. There's just no way to accomplish anything in that environment that I can see, unless you have an open, conversation with someone. They don't have a conversation. They just have a one-way, it's my way or the highway kind of attitude, and you end up screaming. And I'm just not going to do that.
No, amen to that. And I'm glad that you're such an outspoken critic, and definitely it's very good to have people like you, flex the muscle, because who doesn't know Chuck Woolery, so that's good. You get your voice out there, and you're heard and you're active, and set a good example. Not only, and you said it best, it's not about us. Really, at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about our children. That's really what
it's about our children and about our country. It's about the environment that everybody, the left constantly talks about the environment that we're in, and it's a bad environment for people who are raised in the ghetto, and it's a bad environment for the homeless, and it's a bad environment for this, that, and the other. Well, the environment of the country is primary. And our government was founded on a Constitution that I think is just written in stone. And where it's not written in stone, we're able to amend it. So the Founding Fathers were brilliant. It's not as if they didn't come up against this stuff before. And so I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the Bill of Rights. And I think in order to stand for something, you got to believe in something. And most people who don't believe in it don't even know it. And they don't want to know it. So, everybody's always got a new and better idea. Woodrow Wilson was one of those guys. I got a better idea. FDR was another one of those guys. I got a better idea. And their ideas weren't very good. They certainly didn't suit the Constitution. They wanted to rewrite it, both of them. And I got a feeling we have a fellow in the White House right now that trusts them, believes in them, and wants to rewrite it as well.
Yeah. Now, we got a couple of minutes left. I want to ask your thoughts on the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve, of course, I believe, and if you follow any sort of economic data, they've run this country into the ground. What's your thoughts on the Federal Reserve and the possibility that we could get rid of it?
I don't think we'll ever get rid of it. I think that Ron Paul, probably the one thing I did like about Ron Paul, and there were several things I liked about him, but the one thing I liked about him was his challenge to the Federal Reserve. I don't think America understands how detrimental the Federal Reserve is and how powerful they are and how unaccountable they are. So if we're going to have a government for the people and by the people, we need to have a Federal Reserve that is accountable to the people. And if that day ever comes, people are going to be so surprised and so shocked and so dismayed. The only reason they keep all this stuff undercover is because if the American people ever really found out what the Federal Reserve was all about, they would be so in shock that it would take 100 years for them to come out of it. So, they just shut the doors. I don't think it'll ever happen. I think that senators and congressmen don't really want that to happen by and large. And so, unfortunately, we can wail away at this all we want to, but I don't think that they're ever going to open their doors and let us know what they're up to and what they're doing. You're going to hear, they're like the CIA. You have no idea what they're up to half the time. All we know is they print money. They are our intro to the Weimar Republic, and. Let me leave your listeners with something. If we just have a couple of minutes, let me leave them with something they should do.
By all means,
and if you haven't done this, please do this for your benefit. And that is, when I first heard Hillary Clinton about 4 or 5 years ago say, someone asked if she was a liberal, and she said, "No, I'm a progressive." I had no clue what she was talking about. So I went to what's the name of that college? Heritage Foundation. Went to Heritage Foundation, and I typed in progressive movement, and they have about 5 or 6 pages on the origin of the progressive movement, where it came from, how it started, what it did, and how it changed this country. And it came right after the Civil War, by the way. It was about 1880. So it was very close on the heels of the Civil War. And that's when our country was infected by this virus from Germany by a man named Heigl. And you really owe it to yourself to go back and look at what their construct is, what they feel like a successful country should be run by, and how these utopians really view the destruction of America from within. And you will then begin to understand who the progressives are and what they're up to. And when you do, then you'll be very well armed as to how to combat them. Because everything our country stands for is contrary to progressive movement. Everything.
No, absolutely. Timmy, any final thoughts with Chuck before we head on off to break?
Chuck, I'd just like to know if you could make a love connection with Dianne Feinstein and Ted Nugent.
Oh.
The dream, the impossible dream.
Oh, good grief. I mean, I believe he's got...
I'm not so sure Ted would be really up for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. So any plugs you want to give out before we part ways here, Chuck?
Well, the 2 things that I said, please go to Heritage Foundation and look up progressive movement, arm yourself and understand what it's all about. Number 2, go to generationamerica.org and look up all those 70 emails between AARP and the White House. And if you're not shocked, then you don't have a pulse.
Yeah.
And go to Save Us Chuck Woolery and look at my Second Amendment rant. I think you'll enjoy it. We're up to about 500,000 people right now in a month, so it's gone viral.
Absolutely. And folks, like I said, I cannot tell you enough to get active. And, it's folks like Chuck and everyday Joe American to get out there and get engaged, to plug in. Because I
really believe that it's our duty to do that as citizens of this country and to realize what a wonderful place this is we live in. I've been all around the world, and every place I ever went in the world, people were always saying, I want to go to America. There was a reason for it. And it goes very, very deep. We're a very fortunate group of people to grow up in this country, and we need to maintain and keep it. And keep our sovereignty, keep our liquidity, and keep the promise of our children close to our hearts, and stand up for what we believe in.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Wow, that's great. Now, folks, again, generationamerica.org, and you can also visit Chuck's website, saveuschuckwoolery.com, and check out some videos. Yeah, and let me tell you something, Chuck. That AR-15 video, the on assault weapons, fantastic. As a matter of fact, I play that routinely on the air. Just
thank you.
Yeah, just to get the point across.
I particularly like the part about Congressman Waxman in California and Ratatouille. That was one of my favorite parts.
Ratatouille. Oh, yes, fantastic.
Just because something looks like something doesn't make it.
The best line that was political to me was the 9/11 comment, Chuck. I thought that was an awesome analogy.
Well, folks,
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on, Chuck. Folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way. When we come back, it'll be more gun talk, and we're also going to talk about the banking elite not wanting to steal our wealth, but also stealing our